In Singapore, we don't invest in people enough. We don't give them that leap of faith. It's always, I'll give you funding, but I need these ROIs. I need these tangibles, right? How do you quantify tangibles in the human spirit? You can't. How do you quantify how someone has made you feel? Can you put a number to it? You can't. And that's the hole that we dig ourselves into time and time again, and we use that to justify why something is not worth funding or supporting, which I think is a very analogous way of just saying we don't want to feel the extremes of life, and we just want to stick to what's the median and the middle and the safe, for which then I posit we will never grow enough as we can.
Hey friends, welcome to the Creator in Progress podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Lim. Each episode will bring you inspiring stories and practical advice from both successful and budding creators and entrepreneurs on how they got to where they are today.
Today, we're joined by an extraordinary guest who embodies relentless determination, passion, and the pursuit of dreams. Sarah, a Singaporean tennis sensation, etched her name into the Women's Tennis Association singles ranking in 2019. Her journey was anything but easy.
I finally had enough money to ship in shoes from the States in my size. You never expect a Singaporean athlete to say that, but yes.
She shares interesting insights on the world of tennis.
You can kind of see on your face, I don't believe in you because you're so old already and you haven't produced enough result.
And she continues to inspire all of us. Enjoy the conversation.
This episode is co-produced by Scave.
In terms of introductions, right, maybe can you... Okay, this is a question I ask all my guests, but who are you and what's your current mission in life?
My name is Sarah Pang. I play professional tennis. I'm a Singaporean professional tennis player, and my current mission in life is multi-pronged. But I think in essence it would be to inspire and remind people that there is enough love in life to love yourself and be the brightest that you can be for yourself first, and in so doing for your community and the people around you.
I like that. I keep hearing this theme recently, having chats and stuff is like loving yourself first, finding that acceptance and because often I think we don't love ourselves. We say it a lot, but self-care is so important. It's like I always like the analogy of you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then once you are able to help, then you will be able to help people.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's so counterintuitive to how we are culturally raised that it's filial piety, social civic responsibility is about community before self, but we forget that the basic building blocks of that is actually the self. And if you build yourself up in ways that are not sustainable, that's another catch word right now, it's so easy to crumble under pressure, under extenuating circumstances, and there will be many instances of that through life, right? And that's why you have breakdowns, that's why you have midlife crises, because we've built ourselves on a shaky foundation. We've built ourselves on listening to the words and the persuasions of others before actually having the courage to listen to yourself. What do you really want? What do you really want? And it's funny that we're on this because earlier this year in May, I was invited to go back to my founders, or my old schools, my alumni's 200th year anniversary, Founders Day. I was very privileged and lucky to be asked to be the closing speaker for this event. And there were like 4,000 or 5,000 people, a lot of political and business leaders in attendance. And I was the closing alumni speaker. After me, it was just a Reflesion kid. He was, I think, 14 or 15. He wrapped up the whole event, and the event really did end off after his speech. But from the alumni, you're the last speaker. What do you have? What's the message you have for the rest? Coming after you, and it really was, what do you want? Because we are trained in a society, and especially for the school that I went to, we're trained in a way to believe that we can do anything that we want to do, but that anything is so predisposed to the opinions of other people, to the wills and the nillys and the persuasions of what should be the right thing to do, when actually the God is within you. And I don't mean in a blasphemous way, because I'm very Christian and I believe in Jesus Christ and he's awesome and he is our eternal savior. But the power that he has packed for us to live this life post resurrection is one of power and of dominion and of steadfastness in the midst of the tempest and the storm. So if we know that prior to playing the game, how would you play it? Would you play it from a position of fear, or would you play it from a position of confidence and knowing that, hey man, if this is what is said, this is what our right is, then let me test it, let me live it, let's play. You know, and we're not used to playing that way. Yeah, so that's the one thing I kept on challenging the generations after me, actually the entire hall, during the speech, was, what do you want? What do you really want? And go do that. So Jamie, when you reached out and said, I'm doing this podcast, I'm chasing my dream, I was just like, heck yeah, of course I'll come support. This is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel like, so cliche, but like, you know, life is short, right?
Yeah, completely.
You really have to go do the things. It's not when, right? I don't want to be living like a deferred life. And when you go that path, you have enough money when you retire, like, I won't be able to do the things I want to do when I'm like older also, right? And I want to be doing meaningful work. I want to be doing work that I look forward to every day, and that can impact people, right? And like, it just has to be meaningful every day for me. So I'm just like, yeah, I just want to do it now. Enjoy the journey now.
I mean, if I could put another twist to it, like when you are doing something that you really want to do, when the resources are low, or when you haven't built your capital up yet, when you're young, you know, you're still green, you're still new to everything, the act of stepping out when you don't have as much exposes you to living more extremes of emotion, for which many are uncomfortable with because they are such extreme emotions. But that's when, you know, you are really alive. You know, I remember like, this is a rather loose analogy, but once when my first ever college sweetheart broke up with me, first boyfriend ever, like I was so heartbroken, and I took a run up the hills. And my sister came with me with my then 9-month-old niece. And she's carrying her, and we were running. I was running out. She's walking with me. I was trying to get some exercise. And she said to me, you know, Sarah, the pain you feel in your heart right now, as real as it is and as painful as it is, just remember this feeling, because it is not many moments in life like this where you can be really made to feel alive. And I thought, wow, that's always stuck with me, because, you know, we tend to cushion ourselves within a comfortable range of emotion. But is that really what life is? And there are no rights, no wrongs in that approach. Everyone's approach is individual and unique to self. But when you can experience that wider range, like there's more. There's more. And for me, that's always proven to be something more meaningful, because then as you approach those borders and those margins, you get a bit more of a taste of what you can be capable of. It's not just all doom and gloom. You can create. There is beauty in the suffering. It's not romanticizing it or being glorifying it, but there still can be beauty in it. There still can be connection and emotion and ability to grow through that. We're afraid of that growth.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't want to expose ourselves to those extremities. Yeah, but we could.
Yeah. I think, yeah, even jumping out to this world, it's so uncertain. I'm trying to learn how to deal with like uncertainty and ambiguity. I thought I knew how to do it in the corporate world, you know, because there's a very small sense of that. And when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it felt very big then. But now when I come out, it's like, that's nothing. You know, there's so much structure in corporate. You know, you do one thing and you do it well, right? Here it's like, oh my goodness, I have to think about so many things.
It's the wild west, yes.
Yeah, and it's a lot. It's a lot also, but it's exciting in a different. I'm not so scared until I can't move forward, but I'm not used to not having someone guide me. You know, but I think it's something I kind of have to like slowly discover and do by myself.
What's also interesting in the process of creation and you know, not having those handles and trying to like create it yourself, right? Again, like I could echo back to like the standing, the potential and the power that's inherently packed in all of us, and being able to attune ourselves to that. But in that process of creation, you also face your inner demons. They come out, the skeletons, the trauma that you've hidden for a long time that has always been, lying dormant in the midst of structure and guideline. And now, like, it's all out for the world to see, and just like, whoa, where's this coming from, man? That's also part of the growth. That's one of the most rewarding things that, if I can say, for my tennis career, like I've discovered and then still discovering, like, just to be able to, what's holding me back from making that next progression, and how is that connected to childhood trauma, in subconscious bias, what's holding me back energetically, and that delve and a deeper delve into self, the more we undergo that process and introspect more. Some skeptics would sometimes allude it to overthinking, but I really beg to differ. It is not overthinking, it is harnessing and honing self-awareness, for which then the resultant effect, if done properly, is great, tremendous power and self-mastery, which is the root of all greatness. So yeah, hang in there, man. Hang in there.
Thank you. That's why I like, this is a work in progress, hence the name, Creator in Progress. I obviously have followed your journey for a long time, but maybe can you share with us like a brief overview of your journey into the world of tennis, and how you got started on that path? And yeah, I have a question after that, because I know at one point of time your dad asked you to pick like tennis or golf, right?
Yeah.
Why tennis?
Why tennis?
Yes.
I played badminton for 10 years, was one of the top juniors in our country, but sport administration is not always based purely on merit. It's also on politics. It's about who you know. It's about who likes you, who does not like you. For some reason, like, it was very hard to progress from being a top junior to a further level in badminton. So after my A's, my dad said, he pulled me aside, like after your massive Singaporean defining exams, you kind of feel like you've been wrung dry and left to hang. And after my A's, I was feeling exactly that, like the life force had just like completely been squeezed out of me. And my dad said, yo man, I'll let you play pro sport, but just go for tennis, because even if you're 100 in the world in tennis versus 100 in the world in badminton, your life is very different as a top 100 player in badminton and a top 100 player in tennis. And the amount of effort is pretty much about the same. Looking back, I don't think he realized how difficult a sport tennis is. It is a very, very difficult sport on all aspects in France. But yeah, he said you can choose golf or tennis, because you could go pro independent of your association. You do not need nomination to represent or compete at a professional level or at an international level. But for other sports, you oftentimes do, It's impossible, like, play netball by yourself, or, it's just, it doesn't work that way. So at the drop of a hat, I said tennis. Retrospectively, as I share often, I regret it. I should have said golf, because you have a longer lifespan as an athlete in golf. Like, you can have your babies, you can come back. We're starting to see that a bit on the tour. Like, they have their kids and they come back and they still play at a really good level, which is very inspiring. I'm not sure if that's something I want to do myself. I think I would still like to play, but at this level, like, it just takes so much work to reach a certain level of fitness and strength, and it's not something that can be done in 1 month. It's years of work. Yeah. So I chose tennis and didn't look back from there. So yes, that's how I got into tennis in a very brief nutshell. Little did my dad realize that, how difficult this sport was and how complex it was, and so many layers. But I wanted to do the transition right after my A-levels, but at the time my mom felt really sick, and my older siblings, I'm the fifth of six in my family, so my older siblings are like surrogate parents, and they said, screw that, like, you go to university, the typical Asian conservative family approach, you get your degree and then you can go out and do whatever you want to do. And they say they're probably thinking after 3-4 years of college, like, or university, I went to NUS, I did English literature as my degree. They say that probably thinking I'll come out still like, lose steam and come out to work a 9 to 5. But after I finished university, there's just some things in life you were made to do. And I was very aware of that from a very early onset. I always knew it was sport. I could feel it in my bones in secondary school. I'd be having e-math in class and looking out onto the field and just thinking, I just wish I could run out in the sunshine and not sit here and count numbers and crunch figures. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, because I always love PE.
Yes.
But
I've never met a child. Every time I meet a kid, like oftentimes I ask them, so what's your favorite subject, right? They always say PE, yo. They always say PE. I've not met a kid who has not said PE before. Really. It's either canteen is my favorite subject or PE is my favorite. The other one is art. PE, art, canteen. Which says a lot in how our children are naturally predisposed, right?
Right. I would say if I had if PE was graded, I would have aced it.
Of course.
For sure.
For sure.
I mean, not to sound so what, but PE in school was like
boring.
But it was more like during CCAs, like you can go full out, and I really loved it. I loved training. So I used to play basketball, and I played for under 15 last time. So I really enjoyed the sport quite a lot. But I think I resonate a little bit because there was, as a team sport in girls' school, right? Very political and like there were all these sort of things. It wasn't based on like, oh, I'm a good player, but like I got bullied and stuff because I liked someone in school and then the other girls were not happy, those sort of things. And then like they just kind of like turned against me lah. So I think I don't have like a great association with the sport anymore. Although I know I'm good at it, I enjoy it. But after that I was like, I'm going to play an individual sport. I need to find something that I can do by myself, by my own strength and things like that. And I think a few years later, I managed to discover squash. Yeah, I love squash. It's such a intense sport. You get such a good burn. But, even to this day, I just don't have enough. Like, unfortunately, it's just not like a priority for me anymore. So I feel like I love the sport. When I think of it, I'm like, oh, and then I watch the clips on Instagram or whatnot, right? And I see the professional squash players. I'm like, if I started earlier, if I followed this dream, maybe, you never know, right? But I'm just like, I resonate with the I love sports feeling. Yeah.
I wish I could, after I finish tennis, I really hope that I'll be given the chance and the opportunity to bring that into so many more lives after me. I don't know how, what form, what fashion, kind of leaving that up to the universe, setting that intention. But I think it helps when you have leaders who can walk the talk and know what it's like and approach it with sympathy as much as they do with metrics, and I mean, sport is such a great tool. I mean, to your point about how you knew you would have aced PE had it been a graded subject, it's not just aced it. I would add, you would have aced it happily.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got an A in biology, but did you do it happily? Did you get the A in math, but did you do it happily with joy and with peace? It makes a world of a difference.
Correct.
The result may be the same, but well, man, it's the process and the takeaways through that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so many of our kids, we have so much talent in Singapore. So much. I look at the juniors in tennis, right? And I'm just like, man, like, if I wasn't so stretched out playing pro right now, like I'll be holding seminars with the parents, man, and talking to them about athletic development. What do you do? What do you watch out for? How do you need to navigate the calendar? How do you, start planning for life? In 2 years' time when she starts playing at this level, what do you need to look out for, blah, 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 blah. There's so much knowledge that we gain as players on tour that's specific to tennis, but it's so much cross-pollination across into other sports as well for athletic development, and this knowledge deserves to be shared more in service to the next generations after us. So yeah, but dialing back to where we are now, like, I'm just thankful to be able to be pushing that boundary and still being given the opportunity and the space to do that.
And speaking of that, like, I know you I remember the date, 5th August 2019.
What happened that day?
I wonder. You broke into the Women's Tennis Association's singles ranking. What a day. Yeah, can you like share a bit more about like, you know, what were the emotions and thoughts that you experienced when like, I mean, it was something you were always working towards and like you made it, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel, I guess? And
It was very anticlimactical, I will say. I'm serious. I was just like, like that only. No. I mean, like, the last match I played, to get that last point to make ranking, you got to make 3 points in a year. That last match I played, I was running a fever that day. I didn't want to play. And I was set up against this Romanian girl, and she's hitting the ball really hard. And she was a screamer, like a Sharapova screamer, right?
oh, wow, okay.
And it was, I beat her 6-1 in the first set. And because of the fever and like, you know, the focus wasn't quite there and it was really hot, I lost the next set, 1-6. And then I was just like, all right, man, Sarah, like, it's do or die. It was a super tie break to 10. So basically we play up to 10 points. And the first person who reaches 10 wins. It was very tight. And she was leading 6-1 in that tie break.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, far out, man. Like, you just dong lah, just dong. For our international friends means just hanging there, right? And when I won that match, right, I wasn't still quite sure whether it was the last point, but it was just to get WTA ranking. And for uninitiated friends, only 1% of players around the world break into the rankings every year. So it's like really hard to do, right? So I wasn't quite sure whether that was the last point I needed to get ranking, but just on sheer adrenaline of winning that match, right? And having gone through that, the whole emotional flux within the match, the umpire for the tournament was sitting in a container 1.5 to 2 courts down from me in an air-conditioned, door is closed container, right? I screamed so loud, like, come on, so loud, right? That he could hear me all the way in his container. So later on, when I went to sign or, you know, report something, he was just like, hey, did you scream just now? I could hear you all the way from my container, you know. I was just like, yeah, I did. You know, sometimes, Jamie, it's not even about the winning or losing, you know. It's really about like feeling like you've conquered yourself, the voices, conquered the monsters, conquered these tremendous naysayers in your head, and we scathe ourselves with them so much, right? And to on that day say, screw you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna overcome you, not today, devil, not today, you know? It's such a tremendous uplifter of your spirit. And it really, those moments in life sometimes come very few and far between, but when they do, boy, does it remind you of what you can do and what you're made of. It was the same week that we had National Day. So it was so momentous and so emotional for me because my entire tennis journey for my professional years has been, by circumstance, I've had to fundraise. I have to individually go from person to person and ask, can you help me out with 1 day of tour? And in Singapore, we're so used to investing in hard structures, in tangible products, but we don't invest in people enough. We don't give them that leap of faith. It's always, I'll give you funding, but I need these ROIs. I need these tangibles, right? How do you quantify tangibles in the human spirit? You can't. How do you quantify how someone has made you feel? Can you put a number to it? You can't. And that's the hole that we dig ourselves into time and time again, and we use that to justify why something is not worth funding or supporting, which I think is a very analogous way of just saying we don't want to feel the extremes of life, and we just want to stick to what's the median and the middle and the safe, for which then I posit we will never grow enough as we can.
How do you navigate this financial challenges, and how do you continue to push on to your journey despite all these obstacles?
You know, at the start, it was very penny pinching. It was, you know, being very stringent. Like when I ran my first crowdfunding campaign, after that campaign, you want to reckon what was the first thing I actually spent proper money on after I got all that money from my crowdfunding campaign? First thing I bought with my crowdfunding money was proper shoes for my feet.
Really?
Yeah. Because prior to that, I was wearing men's shoes because my feet are really big and they just don't bring that size into Singapore.
Oh.
So I finally had, and that was causing a lot of foot problems because the ergonomics of a men's shoe is slightly different from a woman's shoe because our anatomy is different.
Really?
Yeah. So I finally had enough money to ship in shoes from the States in my size.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was so grateful and thankful for that. You never expect a Singaporean athlete, first world country athlete to say that. But yes, I would not have made ranking if not for my sponsors. I would not have made ranking if not for the treatment that they gave me, the insoles. I cannot express how important insoles are, especially for like heavy running sports. It's so important to make sure your feet, because that's one of the main feedback receptors that your body gets for spinal alignment, for back injuries, for hip injuries, all of it, a lot of it comes from your feet. A lot of it comes from your feet. And again, even that knowledge I got through private spaces, through working with private coaches. And again, it's not, I get this knowledge, it's mine, it's not yours, whatever. No, it's about how we can further serve Singapore. It's how we can further serve our country through this knowledge that we gain through all these spaces. And I'm thankful that I'm an independent athlete because I've had the chance to navigate those spaces a lot more freely and create more. And obviously look for more partners. It's the Wild Wild West. It can be dry, it can be a desert, but it's also beautiful because you can make anything you want of it.
If you don't mind me asking, roughly how much do you need to sponsor like a tour? Or how do you count it? Is it like per tour, per year, or like?
Sure, there's a range. I know I want to do 1-2 more years left, and I don't want to do it without a coach anymore. Like, I'm done doing that. I've been there, done that. I've done the homework. The year I broke ranking was because I had a coach with me. And our KPI was to do it in 12 months. I did it in 6 because I squeezed him so hard. And he said, Sarah, I've never worked with a player who squeezed me as hard as you do. And I thought to myself, I don't think he meant it as a compliment, but I took it as a compliment because, hey man, I'm not here to fuck around.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to really work. And I'm on borrowed time and borrowed money. Not borrowed money, but it's the faith of so many people. You have no idea how much, not just fiscal responsibility, but social responsibility you can feel. I mean, I feel by nature of my person, and how I'm built and how I move, think, operate. But yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, And so I made ranking half the time. But again, like, there's so many times on court that there are things I thought I could do it this time round because, I'm an older athlete now. I've been there, I've done the ropes. I know how to do tour alone, and I'm independent. I can do it, operationalize myself. But when I'm on court, I just came back from 8 weeks on tour. Like, I was reminded how, you can, but whoa, boy, like, it's so much faster with a coach with you. Because it's all these micro additions of stresses that happen on tour, navigating where to find your room how to rent a car. As in France, like new spaces, new courts, new balls, different opponents, weather, inclements, all of that, and where to change your money. Is it safe to go out this time? Like all this little, it seems like very small things, but when you're completely in a different environment alone, and added on top of that, having to perform after all of that, you can't always get it down pat. Let's just put it that way. And maybe because of the way I've developed, started later, whatever, I don't know. But I was reminded again how much easier it is with a coach. So you can do it solo. To answer your question, how much do you need? I'm trying to raise it with a coach that's about $380 a year. Actually, I don't want just coaches. I want to bring team with me because I know I can go so much faster and do so much more, not just for myself as an athlete, but for my country, And it's kind of sad because the business people I've been speaking to so far, most of them have had this, you can kind of see on their face, I don't believe in you because you're so old already and you haven't produced enough results. And that hurts. but that's fine. That's reality, right? And I can understand it. And they also have this "what's in it for me" look, which for me has always been a very difficult question to answer. Not because there is no answer, but because don't you see it yourself? It's about legacy. It's about building something that's bigger than ourselves. It's about serving people with hope and aspiration, and believing that we are more and we can make more together than alone. If by nature of our existence we are an underdog, how can we have the unction to say, I think you cannot make it? Because we already as a nation were not supposed to make it. And when you are saying that from a position of background to someone else who is in the trenches trying to raise up and say, no, you cannot make it, that's very cruel. I'm sorry. That's really, we can do better. We really can do better, But again, I remind myself sometimes when I face people, oftentimes people like that, it's about finding your own tribe. It's about recognizing that.
But I've been following your journey since 2014, right? And yeah, I feel like, I mean, we haven't met since then, but I've just been following you on Instagram, and I just love to be able to see your journey and all that, right? And I think you really keep in touch with your community, and like, it's a very authentic way, and it really is a way for me to follow, like, oh, what's going on with Sarah? How's she doing? Do you feel like it's a intentional thing for you to like continue connecting with your community via Instagram? Is it something you just kind of do because you enjoy sharing the journey?
I know it's always been intentional. I'm actually like extremely shy and introverted by nature. And actually in the past year or so, I feel like I could have been posting more stories. I used to like do like really wicked stories, like really spend a lot of time and and it's only for 24 hours, but I'll share a very raw part and something that matters to me. And I think I started getting like hate messages on Instagram, like people saying like, oh, you can't even pass through qualies, or you're not really a good player. Sorry, you can talk well, but you can't really whatever. I know there are haters that follow my account because they don't follow me, but I see them on my stories. And I know that they talk bad stuff about me in the circle, right? But, my response has always been of one of conscience and integrity. And I know I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And if the light's too bright for them, then I'm not going to dim it.
Yeah.
But initially, when I started getting those hate comments, I was very like, oh, that's really unpleasant. And whatever triggers is also a trauma that resonates in some way or form, right? So like, oh, you haven't passed through colleagues yet, or sorry to say, like, you can speak well, but you're not really. I'm smiling so much because it's so tickling just talking about it. Like, you can speak well, but you're not. I'm sorry to say, you're not really a good tennis player. I'm like, yeah, hey man, like, dude, well done. Imposter syndrome trigger, boom, done. Yes, I do question myself, like, oh, am I good enough player? Am I this? Am I that? But you know what? Like, I've also realized the more people are angry at you, it's because you trigger their own triggers. And that's not something I have control of.
Yeah.
And when I look back at the amount of work Tennis with Sarah, that's my Instagram handle, my Facebook handle, but the handle I chose to share my journey with, when I look at the amount of work and the amount of lives and people that I've been blessed to be a part of in their own everyday private spaces, when they're scrolling their phone, when they're feeling upset, when they're feeling depressed, when they feel like there's no more hope, and they see my story and they feel encouraged. Hey man, that for me is way more than winning a quali match. It's way more than thinking I am a better player, because it's not about my ego. It's about how Tennis with Sarah was meant to serve others. And that's why my handle is not called Sarah Pang, because it's not about me. It's about tennis with, and the genesis of that name was actually precipitated by doing tour in Indonesia. And I think it was one of my first few tours. You're like literally hotel courts for 2 weeks. And I wasn't used to that grind. And when I finally stepped out to go eat a meal at the next door shopping center, I was so surprised because I was like, oh my gosh, this breath of fresh air. It's not tennis and courts and tennis and hotel and courts and laundry and tennis and courts. It's normal life. And then, but in the process of those 2 weeks of playing tour, like you come across all the time, you come across tremendous personal revelations of self, your inwards expanding in consciousness, in bravery and courage, getting tested time and again and overcoming that in however minute a form or fashion, but you still are on that journey of growth. And it's very hard to explain, but you really experience that so much on tour. And then you step out and then there's normal life. And that's a fresh breath of air. And then you come back into tennis. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like, you know, it's one thing to be called it's one thing to be called a hypo athlete, a high performance athlete. You high perform, obviously. But it's another thing to be called a national athlete, because when you're called a national athlete, you're supposed to serve your nation through your sport. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to teach everyone how to hit a forehand or how to move on court or, you know, any of that tennis technical stuff. And I thought, how can I then bridge that divide? But I cannot teach you all of that stuff, but I can bring you with me. And that's why I was tennis with Sarah. It's with me. Like, and tennis really is just a vehicle. It's how do I learn? How am I learning more about myself? How am I learning more about other people? How am I, you know, learning more about the world and growing through this journey? That's why it's with. And I'm talking to you about it. I'm talking to you guys about it through my stories. And I hope in many ways, like, it resonates. Like, that I do have anxiety. Oh my goodness, is someone going to understand it? Am I going to get judged for this one? I was just like, screw it, you know, like, I told myself in the first ever crowdfunding campaign I did, I was petrified, man, Jamie. I was so scared. How would people take it? Would they call me like a joke? Because there was already that vernacular being used in the tennis circle in Singapore. Like, you know, she doesn't really know what she's doing, blah, blah. And yeah, maybe I didn't, but so what? So what? Why are we so afraid of failure that we can't even try or dare to stick our necks out? For the failure that you think I am, at least I have bigger balls than you to try and do it. What do you have on your CV? Just money by staying on the median line? Sorry, it doesn't count much in my economy. But yeah, with that crowdfunding video, right? And when I look back at that video, I can see the fear in my body language because I'm so nervous. But with that crowdfunding video, yeah, you see so many Singaporeans come out of the woodwork and they feel the same way. They all resonate with wanting more. Not for the sake of more, but wanting more so they can grow themselves, right? And I'm a big believer that the leaders are the ones that walk the talk. They don't just talk, they walk. They walk. And even if you get smashed again, you still walk, you know? And that's how I would like to use my life as an example and a source of encouragement to those around me and the ones after. More often than not, I'm held back because I think about the haters. What are they going to say? Are they going to give them more ammo, blah, blah? And yeah, I'm just like, you know what? For the 10 haters, if I reach one person, and I know I always reach more than one, is it worth it? Yeah, it is, you know, Jamie. Even though the numbers don't make sense, it is worth it. Because the 2 can lead to 4, can lead to 6, just by lifting them up, they lift others up, right? So yeah, just the courage to be on social media and to speak that message of hope and light, even in the midst of your darkness, is needful.
Thanks for being so vulnerable and like sharing all this and like, yeah. Where can people find you if they want to follow your story?
Instagram and Facebook, it's Tennis with Sarah. Sarah's with an H. So I'm assuming everyone knows how to spell tennis and with. Tennis with Sarah. Yeah. That's my Instagram, Facebook handle if you'd like to be a part of the journey in a very tangible way. My crowdfunding link is on that video on my profile as well. But really, even we just came and just decided to join it for what it's worth, for a post or two. I pray you will be blessed and encouraged to go chase your own mountain, whatever it may be.
Thank you. I'll post all the links into the show notes. So yeah, be sure to follow Sarah's journey. And yeah, thanks Sarah for your time.
My
today.
pleasure. My pleasure.